All right, welcome back to the channel. I know I haven't done, again, a video in a while. Life keeps getting in the way, but we are moving along on this project. I have done a lot of thinking about what I want to do with this. This is not going to be a show car. It's not going to be something I'm going to try to win awards with. It's just me rebuilding it so I can drive it on the weekends. I have made some decisions on this. I know that some of the diehard collectors out there are going to probably scream at me for doing this. But I have decided I'm going to convert this Jeep over from a 24-volt system to a 12-volt system. So that entails getting rid of this 24-volt starter, and we're going to basically order a brand new high-torque 12-volt starter to go in its place. We're also going to get rid of this old generator that runs on 24-volt. We're going to be replacing that with a one-wire alternator that's built for basically a 12-volt swap. So we're going to order that with a new bracket. We're going to be removing the voltage regulator. It won't be needed anymore because the alternator will be in place, so that'll be not needed, so we'll get that removed. I'm also going to replace the whole wire harness that I was going to buy that was going to be a waterproof 24-volt with a 12-volt. Basically, it's a CJ3A wiring harness built for 12-volt. It'll do everything I need, and it's only $300 versus like $1,100. So roughly for the price I was going to spend for one wiring harness on this Jeep, I'll be able to put a new starter in, an alternator, a new key start switch, and a complete wiring harness from front to back. I also was doing some thinking about this factory waterproof 24-volt distributor that's on here, the wires that I've already replaced, and the spark plugs. These were a little pricey. I don't want to have to replace these again with standard 12-volt, push-on wires. So these will work. I'm going to actually, what I've done is ordered inside this distributor over here is a 24-volt coil. So I've actually ordered a 12-volt military style coil that will fit into this waterproof distributor and will convert this distributor over to a 12-volt system. That way I don't have to waste money buying new spark plug wires, new spark plugs, or a new distributor. So even though a new distributor is $150. The reason I decided not to do that mainly is because, one, I have a perfectly good distributor that functions right now. Two, I believe that this timing on this engine is 180 degrees out. I think it's 180 out on the oil pump, which is why I had such trouble with all the spark plug wires not being in the correct position when it was, I hooked them up per the specs. Engine was not firing correctly. Then I moved them around and 180 out, and all of a sudden it runs great, right? So I was going to correct that issue. I was going to go ahead and pull the oil pump, pop a new distributor in here that's built for a 12-volt system originally, and do the wires and all that. However, this is what changed my mind. Sometime in the life of this Jeep, the oil pump, which is right here on the side of the engine, on the left side, right next to the exhaust manifold downpipe, somebody snapped the top bolt off and broke it off. Now, it's got 3 bolts that hold it in place. There's still 2 more in here. It does not leak. I've had this engine running. This oil pump functions 100%. It doesn't leak. However, that is something we are going to have to address in the future. Now, I know that when I pull this oil pump, I'm going to have to drill and tap that out, find a replacement bolt. And I didn't want to have to go through all that just yet. That's going to be later down the road. Once the Jeep is on the street and we're driving it, that'll be a weekend project for the future. So since this is fully functional right now, and I want to get this on the road as quickly as possible, we're going to just go ahead and leave our 24-volt distributor in there. We're going to leave it 180 out because it does run just fine like that. And we're going to use the existing waterproof wires and plugs that I've already purchased. Now, I probably will end up, when I do this oil pump, I probably will go ahead and take that 24-volt distributor out and pop in a 12-volt one, later on down the road. Reason for that is this distributor, even though it is functional, it is 50+ years old. Eventually, I think when I start driving this thing more regularly, some of the demons are going to start coming out of this Jeep. So, just kind of an update on where we're at. So today, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be ordering the parts today, later on this evening, for this conversion. I've already ordered the 12-volt coil from DeBella Jeep Parts, so that should be on its way. I'm going to today remove this starter. and take the voltage regulator out and the generator. And then we're going to also go ahead and start making our measurements for the new starter that's going to bolt up. I need to measure the bolt line, like the pattern for the bolts, to make sure that the new one will work. And then I also need to count the teeth on the flywheel to make sure that new starter will bolt up correctly and the Bendix will mate up correctly to the flywheel. Factory, late delivery M38s. This one was May of 52. Technically, it would be a late M38, so it should have a 129 tooth ring gear in it. I'm going to double check that before I start ordering a $400 starter. So for now, in order to do that, I'm going to pull the plugs out, which I've already kind of started. I loosened this one, and we're going to pull those out. I'm going to label everything so I know where they go back in. And then we're going to go ahead and take a screwdriver and just rotate the engine over, because I don't have anybody here to help me rotate it on the crank bolt. So I'm just going to slowly move it with a screwdriver, mark the tooth that I want to start on, and then rotate it around until I see it again and just keep count. So that's the plan for today. I will show you what this all looks like after it's been removed. Couple things we are going to also have to replace when we do this 12-volt system. This old junk grounding wire is going in the trash, okay? Some of these are going to be rebuilt. This wire is just fine. It's just dirty. So I'm going to rebuild that. I've still got the hub parts disassembled here. We haven't quite started on that project yet. I do have all the parts for the brakes already here. I ordered those about a month and a half ago, and again, life got in the way. I have not had a chance to get out here and start messing with that, so that is still on the list of to-do. If I have time this weekend or today, I may pull this master cylinder out for the brakes and swap the new one on, since I've got all the parts, and at least get that done. There is this mounting bracket right here that I noticed is bent that goes on our brake pedal. I'm going to have to pull that out and put it in a vise and straighten it. So that's where we're at. So I'll give you an update video here in just a few minutes after I get the other parts out. I want to talk a little bit more real quickly about what I meant with 180 degrees out. So you can look that up also in Google. There's a lot of information out there on it. I've pulled the distributor cap and wires off. Whenever you do that, you want to make sure that so that you get back in time correctly, you label. I just put a number on there, right? So this is number 4, this is number 1, number 2, and so on, right? So I took a Sharpie and marked it on there. Number 1 is going to be your forwardmost cylinder. 2, 3, 4 back towards the firewall. Now, ideally, if this thing is not 180 degrees out and it's timed correctly, your distributor cap, or it's not really your, I guess your cap here, your so that you get your condenser, get your points, your coil, which this is a 24-volt coil. I ordered a 12-volt. It's going to look identical to this, but it's going to be a 12-volt. And then your distributor cap. So I guess your rotor, whatever they call it. But it basically should be pointing at the 5 o'clock position if your number 1 cylinder is at top dead center on the compression stroke, which you can test that by a lot of times somebody will take the spark plug out, they'll put their hole over it, rotate the engine over by hand, and so you feel the pressure, and then you'll know, you can stick like a piece of wire or something down in there, and you can see the wire go up and down. As soon as you start to see it come up, and then it'll stop, and then it'll come. As soon as it starts to come down, you'll know you're at top dead center. And this should be pointed at the 5 o'clock position. So this rotates inside of a distributor, and it fires off an electrical contact and sends electricity to the wire, which in turn gives you spark. So with mine, with it being 180 degrees out, I believe when it's at the number 1 cylinder or top dead center, it's going to be pointed at the 7 o'clock position, right? 7 or 8, somewhere in this range, like this way, not this way. So just something to be aware of if you're trying to time one of these L134s. There's lots of information out there on it. I'm by no means an expert. I've just gone online and read a lot of stuff about it. There's plenty of YouTube videos on it as well. But in referencing the oil pump can be turned when they install it. If they don't turn this thing, like the oil pump, I guess it'd be like the tang or whatever in there. If they don't line that up correctly and it's 180 degrees out, That's what messes your timing up on your distributor. So when you put your oil pump back in, you want to make sure that it's lined up correctly. And the way that that's done is you would pull your distributor, drop your oil pump down, rotate it around until you know where it's correctly oriented, and you would just shine a light down through here and take a look and see. And you should see that the offset, basically the rod that goes in the distributor goes down into the engine, it makes contact with the oil pump, and it can only go in one way. So it's got an offset tang on the bottom of it that will only go in a certain direction, and you'll see it in there. It's unmistakable. You can't miss it, right? So that is eventually the plan, but for now we're going to go with this this distributor that we're using. I don't feel like pulling it and, like I said, messing with the oil pump. So all right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove the generator. I've got to take the belts off. I've got to get some of this junk out of the way as well so we can see what we're doing. But I'm going to remove this generator and the bolts, and then the voltage regulator right here, just 4 bolts. And then there's some grounding straps that go along with that on the bottom. You'll have to unbolt those. And that actually, this whole plate should come off with this, and then you'll just be left with like a bracket on the frame, and I'll show you what that looks like once we get it apart. Okay, so here we are. So you can see I've removed the backing plate and the regulator, voltage regulator that mounts to the frame right here. These frame mounts are permanently welded. Now I could probably cut them off, grind them off, make it look cleaner, but I'm just going to leave it. I don't want to mess with the original integrity that was there. Generator has been removed. The belts have been removed. Those are super easy. You just pull the 1 bolt out of the top here, shift this up, rotate the generator towards the engine, and it'll loosen those belts up so you can pop them off. I took the starter off as well. Now the one that I'm ordering, it has some specific dimensions that you have to measure to make sure that it will fit correctly. So one being that the flywheel, which is in here, the Bendix, when you engage the starter, hits the flywheel, makes contact with it, and rotates it, starts the engine. Now I had to rotate this over by hand with a screwdriver and count each tooth on here because I need 129 teeth on this for that starter Bendix to mate up to this correctly, which we did confirm it does have 129, just as I thought. The inside diameter right here where the starter goes into the bell housing has to be 3 1/4 inches, which it measured out perfectly. And then the mounting holes right here are 4 1/4. And there is a little bit of play in here in this one. This is a threaded hole that goes straight into the bell housing. This one is a through hole, so it's got a nut on the back side of it that I've taken out. But there's a little bit of wiggle room there, so if you're off by a 32nd of an inch or something like that, you can make that work. I probably will remove this because the new starter is a lot slimmer. It's going to be a lot shorter. It's going to be about half the length of the other one, so this will not be needed anymore. So this bracket's going to eventually come off. You can see you got a little bit of pitting and rust right here on the block from where I drained it a while back before it sat over wintertime. So I'm going to have to clean that up and retouch up paint that. When we get down to the 12-volt system, I'm only going to need 1 battery, which is great. So the battery box that's built into the cowl of the M38 housing, I will not need. So we'll probably just leave that empty. Our new battery that we're going to put is going to mount on the old battery spot. I'm going to not put the battery box back in. Originally, there was about a 16-inch high box here with a flip-up top. I'm not putting that back on. It just seems silly because then I've got to find a specific battery to fit in that box when I've got a perfectly good base here that I can put this battery on. So I'm going to put the spark plugs back in here just to keep any kind of moisture out of the engine while it's sitting. And I did notice something on here, so I didn't think of this before. I'm not sure why, but I will when I start the engine up again next time before I put everything back together. I'm going to re-gap these spark plugs because that right there is just that gap is really closed. Same with this one. So some of the gaps are open more than others. So I want to make sure we have a good strong spark on here. So I'm going to make sure I gap those to spec. It should help the engine run a lot better as well. But so anyways, we got those. There's all our stuff here that we pulled out. I'm going to go ahead and order the parts today. In just a few minutes, I'm going to go inside and get these parts ordered so we can get this next portion of this project going. At that point, the electrical system will pretty much be 80% done once we install these items. We're still going to have to get new taillights for the back, but we obviously got to wait till January when I order the body. That's my timeline for getting a body ordered and delivered. We'll have to replace those. We're going to have to replace the blackout lamps that are in the front on this Jeep. They look like this. I'm going to convert those to turn signals. They sell a conversion kit for that, where you basically take the face of that blackout lamp off, put a 12-volt bulb into it, and then you put an amber plate over it. The turn signal kit that I'm going to have to order attaches to the wiring harness that I'm ordering, so everything should be plug and play at that point. So this is the latest update with everything. If you have any questions or anything like that, I'd be happy to answer them for you. But we'll come back to you when we get the parts in for the electrical components, and I'll make another video showing the installation of these items.